All right, let's start by stating your name and your role at Taliesin.
My name is Christopher Yanaranop. My role is the assistant APM to Patrick Marzuk in his business unit division.
Cool. And jumping right into it, what was your favorite project or assignment to work on while at Taliesin?
It was actually the video game studio for Pratt University, Pratt Institute. It's one of my favorites. There are a few, but Pratt really takes it out. We also did a Brazilian art gallery, which was my first initial project when I started at Taliesin. But Pratt and the video game studio takes the bait.
Cool. And maybe just to back up a little bit, could you talk a little bit about your previous professional experience and uh, just your experience in the industry so far?
Sure, I'll try to make it as short as possible. I started out from architecture school, 7 years, associates and a bachelor's in architecture. At the time, I worked for the City University of New York, working on their AutoCAD floor plans for a group of architecture students. I've done that for about 5 years. We integrated it into Archibus, and it turns into a report which gets sent back to New York State for budgeting purposes. That works with the capital budget people. After that, I decided to pursue my career in the private industry of architecture, working on healthcare facilities for 5.5 years. And then I pursued a firm by the name of Stonehill and Taylor, and I worked with them for approximately 4.5 years between healthcare, um, some laboratories, which is a state police crime lab, and also some hotels as well. Before then, the next stop was at Gensler, where I worked on institutional and also a lot of corporate interiors. From that point, I continue with corporate interiors into government facilities of 3D modeling and modeling of HVAC structures of existing infrastructure, which got coordinated into new infrastructure. And with that, I moved on to change my mind to go into construction management, which gave me an opportunity. Simply enough, I met a friend in a park and found my way in by just walking into a park, which is kind of funny. And from that point, I got involved in a project with relocating the Chase headquarters for their new skyscraper. In other words, we had to relocate all the employees who worked for Chase into certain locations. We had the biggest one, I think about 100,000 square feet, which had to be done in about 6 months. And from that point on, I worked on some small little office interiors and gut renovations and whiteouts for Plaza Construction. And I came on to Taliesin on board. And I think that's about it for now. Yeah.
Cool. And just to go back to the Pratt Gaming Arts Studio, if you had a few specific things that you enjoyed about that project, what about it?
It's literally what I had in common with it. I love video games. I played, me and my wife are actually video gamers. We indulge in and I would say the nerd culture, not the nerd, but the geek culture of I do comic books. She likes anime, and we both play video games. And it's all over the place. It's in our phones. It's also related to the fact that when I used AutoCAD, it started out as a 2D and it became a three-dimensional sort of phase. And I also had to kind of self-taught myself to use Revit. And at that point on, 3D modeling is the way to go with almost everything. I mean, the visuals of 2D are still always going to be available, at 3D is there. And then by playing video games in my past, it helped me with coordination through architectural models and stuff. So I wasn't really lost when I saw something, I could immediately just tell what it was. But video gaming is becoming some sort of an interactive phase where people can make decisions and no longer have to follow a rail of a video game story. They could just decide what they want to do. And video gaming has changed the industry, not just in gaming, but also in professional work as well. It's become a huge interaction between the young and the old, and millennials, and all aspects. So, yeah.
Cool. Do you have a Twitch gamer tag you want to plug here?
No, I don't have one yet, but it would be under the Bronx Y, which I got from during my days at the bar. But yeah, the Bronx Y.
Cool. So Taliesin doesn't have an estimating department. How does that affect your workflow for better or for worse? Maybe you want to say some pros and cons there, whatever your thoughts are.
The pros is that the involvement that the individuals have here is that we price everything. We talk with the subs. We ask them basic things. They go through the drawings, of course, and we have to make sure that they provide the coverage um, for what is to come. The important thing about this is that I worked at a bigger office, and we had a whole department. I was not able to get involved. It would take time to get into that department, and then you'll stay with that department for 4 to 5 years, depending if you're actually able to get here. With Taliesin, you're just going to be doing both. The cons is the fact that there's a lot of work involved. I mean, you have to go from a project where you're working to build it to another project where you're actually doing an estimate for it, and that might happen within 1 or 2 days, where you have to estimate for two projects and work on a submittal log for another project or R5 log for another project. So you kind of have to jumble around and make sure you capture your priorities, or just shut your email off sometimes in your phone and just focus on something and then come back to those later on.
Cool. Okay. So we recently brought on Procore to the tool set. You want to talk a little bit about what tools are changing the Taliesin process for the better? Maybe a little bit about the Taliesin apps, the estimate log, and other tools that you use in the area, whether internal software for Taliesin or externally developed stuff like Procore.
So Procore is a big step in Talison's movement. The reason for that is because we always will update the Excel spreadsheets, which are our submittal logs and our RFI logs. A lot of cutting and pasting there, especially when deciding on how to submit a RFI and also a submittal log. So basically, there's a lot of cutting and pasting. With Procore, there's no need to do that. And we're still working on developing the templates, which will in the future enhance the reduction of actually using the current logs that we have in Excel. Don't get me wrong, they were great, but now with the point of typing in one area, it types into many different areas, creating reports without using cut and pasting. Um, SmartBid has become a productivity tool that it's highly necessary for what we do in order to make sure that we are in fluctuation with how many subs are giving us their bids. It is a teamwork effort. It doesn't do work automatically, but it does the job where people are responsible, especially APMs, to check mark on who's submitted, who's not responding. So we also use Stack for estimating as well. And those are the major tools that we worked with a lot. A lot of individuals are working with Microsoft Project, but it really works for the wider scheme of things. And that's literally all I have to say about that. Yeah.
Cool. Um, so we're constantly trying to advance our processes here at Taliesin, innovation being one of our key pillars to success. So, what Taliesin processes do you think could use some more improvement in the future?
Well, everything has to have a standard template, and in order to make that template work, we have to learn through our mistakes, and our mistakes become the template. For instance, I believe our field division, basically, I had to send an email out on basically saying, "Hey, look, can you guys please provide a uh, conference caller that's wireless, that works on the internet, that we use with our clients and our architects?" And it always has to be sent as an email form rather than a checklist. I mean, we do checklists. Everyone tries to follow it, but it doesn't apply to every single thing that we do. I just believe that in the future we're probably gonna have to establish a standard between field and general management. We are doing that, but we don't want to overcomplicate things. One time I got a list from Taliesin that was developed probably about 2 to 3 years ago before I came on board, and I almost got a headache with the list. So I knew that at one point, not everything was applicable to it, but it did help a bit. But sometimes with the timing of all things, you just have to consider which is a priority and handle that in an orderly fashion. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Thanks. So, I think we covered question 7 already earlier, so we'll wrap it up with question 6. We're involved in some charitable initiatives, Bike to the Beach, things of that nature. Um, are there any charity organizations you're involved with personally, or any that you've heard of that would be good? Just trying to see if we can expand our outreach even further, especially if there's a cause that um, you know other colleagues here are passionate about. So doesn't you know if there's nothing, then there isn't anything. But just want to ask the question.
Well, at one point in my previous job, we had take part in. I'm an Eagle Scout, so it's part of a culture which also has grown big now because now women are going to be Eagle Scouts. And at first, I wasn't excited because it was sort of a boys' club thing, and now it's become sort of you know a reversal. And I like what's happening with the Scouts. And the reason why I bring the Scouts is that there's a lot of trouble. Um, things that happen in the Scouts that I believe in the actual product of what they do. I mean, the camping, the ranking, the responsibility, the outreach of um, the basic necessities of cooking, learning how to make a fire. Of course, is not a bad thing, but um, and also community and help. And I think the Scouts have basically have been sort of evolving in many ways, and it could be a good resource for reaching out to the community as well. I've done that with Plaza. I kind of was very likable about that. They also has few Eagle Scouts here and there, and in the company who I was actually close friends with, and also the Scouts themselves do provide community help, which is, I think, one of the most gracious things I've ever done as an individual, as an Eagle Scout. And, hopefully in time when I have my kids, when my kids come around, I will have them highly involved in scouting when they're ready and when they're not ready. Not to force them to finish, but I would love them to finish an Eagle Scout. Thank
Awesome, Chris. Thank you.
you very much.
All right.